you have obviously made the case for the Khamzat fight. I feel like it's probably one of the biggest fights in the division.
Yeah, no, I mean, nobody who wants to see fucking two little goat fuckers go at it. You want to see a real fucking American fight this little Chechen fucking whore in American soil. This is a fight that needs to happen.
Yeah, I hate to spoil it for you. I don't think you're going to get on the White House card.
I mean, dude, who knows, dude? You know, I mean, you know, no, dude. Maybe I gotta go hang up at Epstein or some shit. I guarantee you, dude. I guarantee you fucking Chimaev would go to a fucking island. That motherfucker's going all day long, that dirty little fucker.
Said he tapped you out. That's why you hate him.
Bro, I made him quit training. Witnesses in the audience. Where's Eric? I made him quit. We're doing positional grappling. All right, start on my back. And I was like, first round, I let him fucking choke me because it's like no one gives a fuck. Let me tell you about this little bitch. I'll tell you. When I walk into a gym, do you think that I go find the little weakest man? I say, let's spar. I say, no, I go find the biggest, baddest motherfucker. And I'm like, hey, I want to spar you. Every time Chimaev would walk in the gym, he would pick the smallest, lowest level pro and say, but oh, he looks like my opponent. You're beating the fuck out of it. And this is a true story. You guys can back me up, my team. Chimaev's a fucking bully. And if you notice what he does in the division, he just runs and fucking hides. Oh, now I want to go to 205 and fight fucking Yuri, who's not even the fucking champ, dude. You just run and fucking hide. You did it when you train with us, and you're doing it in the fucking division.
Can Sean defend Khamzat to the point that he doesn't get written out and taken down and controlled for 25 minutes? I don't know that. But I tell you one thing that I do know is that if that guy that showed up tonight shows up in that fight, it will be much more difficult a fight for the great Khamzat Chimaev. Why? Because even Israel Adesanya, at the peak of his power, struggled with that version of Sean Strickland. The Dricus du Plessis fight, it didn't seem like Sean was locked all the way in. He seemed a little messed up, and it showed. It showed his body language, his posture, his lack of confidence. It showed in his coach getting frustrated. There were a number of reasons why he just didn't look the same. But tonight he looked the same. He looked like the guy that became the world champion.
Oh, that's a wrap? Right. Anyways, wait, I got one for Smo. It ain't a wrap, dog. Relax. UFC motherfucker. What's up, Smo?
I gotta ask you this. You stopped the guy with the 8-fight win streak. Do you feel like Sean Strickland did enough to get the next title shot in the middleweight division?
Yes, I fucking did. I don't think this thing works. I'll say that. Yes, I did enough. Listen, you don't want to see any of these motherfuckers fight that little Chechen war. You want to see the last fucking American in the sport going fuck that guy up. And that's what's gonna happen.
What did Sean Strickland do to beat Khamzat?
Sean Strickland just threw the entire middleweight division into absolute chaos, and the UFC has no idea how to fix it. What started as a routine fight night just became the biggest headache Dana White has faced all year, because now they've got a problem that's tearing apart their carefully crafted title picture. Strickland wasn't supposed to dominate like this. He wasn't supposed to make it look easy. But that's exactly what happened. And now the entire 185-pound landscape has been flipped upside down in the most dramatic way possible.
When they're supported and told how great they are, they do the best when they're questioned. And Sean Strickland is one of these guys.
Here's what nobody's talking about, though. This wasn't just another win for Strickland. This was a statement that completely shattered every prediction, every ranking, and every plan the UFC had for the middleweight division moving forward. When Strickland stepped into that octagon against Hernandez, the betting odds had him as the underdog. The analysts were picking against him. Even hardcore fans thought this might be where his momentum finally hit a wall, but Strickland thrives on that doubt. He feeds off people counting him out. And what we witnessed wasn't just a victory, it was a masterclass in proving everyone wrong when it matters most. The way he broke down Hernandez, the precision of that TKO finish, the complete control he showed from start to finish. This is a fighter who's hit his absolute peak at the perfect time.
Come on nights, and I'm not just talking about outcome. He's had great outcomes. But I'm not just talking about outcomes. I'm talking about the actual performance. He does his best.
But here's where it gets absolutely wild. Strickland's victory didn't just earn him another win on his record. It created a massive problem that's got UFC matchmakers scrambling behind the scenes right now. See, before this fight, they had a clear path mapped out for the middleweight title picture. Khamzat Chimaev was positioned as the next big thing, the undefeated prospect who was supposed to steamroll through the division. Dricus du Plessis was building momentum as another top contender. The rankings made sense. The storylines were clean, and Dana White could promote the fights he wanted to promote. Then Strickland goes and destroys those plans with one performance that nobody saw coming.
When the world doesn't think he can do it, when the world questions him.
And get this, what makes this situation even crazier is the mental warfare aspect that Strickland brings to every fight. This isn't just about his technical skills or his physical conditioning, though both are clearly elite level right now. It's about the psychological advantage he gains from being underestimated, from having that chip on his shoulder, from carrying that us-against-the-world mentality that's made him so dangerous. You heard him in the post-fight interview talking about how he thrives on the pressure, how he actually performs better when people doubt him. That's not just tough guy talk. That's the mindset of a fighter who's found his identity in being the disruptor, the guy who shows up and ruins everyone else's plans.
Contend with?
I do give credit for is guys that I do see as an experience advantage is guys who have been in main events.
Now listen to this part, because this is where Strickland's fighting IQ really showed. Against Hernandez, it wasn't about rushing in for a quick finish or trying to prove a point early. Strickland showed the patience and timing of a seasoned veteran who's learned to read fights at the highest level. He waited for the exact right moment to turn up the pressure, and when he sensed that opening, he pounced with surgical precision. That's championship-level fight awareness, and it's exactly why the UFC's current middleweight rankings don't make sense anymore. How do you keep a guy who's fighting like this away from a title shot? How do you justify putting other fighters ahead of him when he's dismantling everyone they put in front of him?
It's a different feel to close out the night. Not only in the media and the expectation leading into the fight, but fight night itself. When you're in the locker room and you're surrounded by all these guys that you've watched on TV and all these big names that people think are cool, and maybe you even yourself at one point thought were cool or still do.
But wait, it gets worse for the UFC's matchmaking team. Now they've got Strickland coming off this incredible TKO victory, and the traditional solution of just matching him up with another top contender isn't going to work. Why? Because Strickland has already beaten most of the guys they'd normally put him against. He's got wins over former champions, he's beaten highly ranked contenders, and his head-to-head record against other top middleweights is actually better than people realize. So when fans and analysts start debating who deserves the next title shot, Strickland's resume speaks for itself in a way that makes it impossible to ignore.
They've come in the back, and some of them are hanging their head and they're heartbroken. They come in the back, and some of them are high-fiving and celebrating with their coaches. Like all of these different emotions, and you're seeing it, and you're taking it in, and you're trying to be happy for the guys in the locker room.
Here's the kicker, though, and this is what's driving UFC executives crazy right now. In almost every major sport, head-to-head competition is the ultimate tiebreaker. If two fighters have similar records and similar claims to a title shot, you look at who beat who. And that's where Strickland's position becomes undeniable. He's got direct victories over fighters who are still being considered for major opportunities. He's proven he can handle the pressure of big moments. He's shown he can adapt his game plan mid-fight and find ways to win even when things don't go according to plan. Those aren't just nice-to-have qualities for a title contender. Those are the exact attributes that separate champions from everyone else.
But your time is still yet to come. It's a different experience, and that's before you get into the fact that it's a different sport.
So here's the massive dilemma the UFC is facing right now. They've got Khamzat Chimaev, who's still undefeated and brings that massive pay-per-view appeal, especially with his global fanbase. They've got other contenders who fit better into their promotional plans and marketing strategies. But they also have Sean Strickland, who just proved he belongs in any conversation about the best middleweights in the world. And the problem is, you can't just ignore what happens inside the octagon because it doesn't fit your business plans. The fans won't accept it, the media won't accept it, and most importantly, the other fighters won't accept it. When a guy earns his spot through dominant performances, you have to respect that, even if it complicates everything else.
All right, 5 rounds versus 3 rounds. You're now not doing the same thing. You're now doing something else.
The reality is, Strickland has become the ultimate wildcard in a division that was supposed to be predictable. He's the fighter who shows up and ruins carefully crafted storylines with performances that are impossible to dismiss. And whatever decision the UFC makes next is going to have massive consequences for the entire middleweight landscape. Do they give Strickland the title shot his performances have earned? Do they try to find another big fight that keeps him busy while they sort out their preferred title picture? Either way, one thing is crystal clear. Sean Strickland just proved he's not going anywhere, and the middleweight division will never be the same. So here's my question for you. After what we just witnessed, does Strickland deserve the next title shot, or should the UFC stick with their original plans? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this debate is just getting started. If this breakdown opened your eyes to how wild this situation really is, smash that like button, subscribe for more MMA analysis that goes beyond the surface, and hit that notification bell because the middleweight division is about to get even crazier. I'll see you in the next one.
No different in basketball. If I develop a shot that's worth 5 points, we're now not playing basketball as you know it. We're now playing something.
And speaking of getting crazier, let's talk about what this means for the current champion. Because nobody's discussing how Strickland's performance just changed the entire dynamic at the top of the division. The champion right now is looking at this situation and has to be thinking about stylistic matchups, about which contender poses the biggest threat, about which fight makes the most sense from a legacy standpoint. But here's what makes Strickland so dangerous for any champion. He's not just improved technically. He's evolved into a completely different type of problem than he was even 2 years ago.
Looks a lot like it, but if you change one rule, you've changed the sport. And I just bring that to you because...
Think about this for a second. When fighters reach championship level, they usually have to deal with one of two types of challengers. You've got the explosive athletes who bring raw power and speed, trying to overwhelm you early before you can settle into your rhythm. Then you've got the technical masters who want to outpoint you over 5 rounds, break you down systematically, and prove they're the better pure fighter. But Strickland represents something else entirely now. He's become the psychological nightmare that gets inside your head before the fight even starts, then backs it up with championship-level skills once the cage door closes.
How are you going to react? Where are you going to use that energy? When do you know when to sprint as opposed to hold back? And
here's where it gets really interesting, though, and this is something most analysts are completely missing. Strickland's recent evolution isn't just about becoming a better fighter. It's about becoming a smarter fighter who understands exactly how to exploit the modern MMA landscape. He knows that in today's UFC, controversy sells, personality matters, and being able to generate buzz outside the octagon is almost as important as what you do inside it. But unlike other fighters who try to manufacture drama, Strickland's approach feels authentic because he genuinely doesn't care what people think about him.
I won't say that we saw that specifically in this fight. Like, I don't suggest for you that Hernandez got fatigued. I just suggest for you that there was a leg up in experience in main event situations, and that experience went to the former champion, Sean Strickland. So what do you do now? We have always believed in this community.
And that authenticity is creating a perfect storm for the UFC's promotional team. On one hand, Strickland generates the kind of organic buzz that you can't buy with marketing campaigns. Fans are talking about him, debating his chances, arguing about whether he deserves certain opportunities. That's exactly the kind of engagement that drives pay-per-view sales and social media metrics. But on the other hand, Strickland is completely unpredictable when it comes to media obligations, press conferences, and playing the promotional game the way the UFC prefers their stars to play it.
We believe that for very good reason. If you guys remember, RDR had his hands full, and Brennan Allen steps in and slows that down. Bo Nickal's in a recovery phase.
Now here's something that's flying completely under the radar, but it's huge for understanding why this situation is so complicated. The timing of Strickland's surge couldn't be more perfect from a competitive standpoint, but it's creating logistical nightmares for the UFC's scheduling department. They've already got events planned months in advance, with certain fighters penciled in for specific dates, specific venues, specific promotional campaigns. When a guy like Strickland forces his way into title contention with a performance like this, it doesn't just change one fight. It creates a domino effect that impacts multiple events, multiple storylines, and multiple business relationships.
And we all believed that Imanov was next for Chimaev. I don't know that...
But let's dig deeper into what makes Strickland so problematic for other contenders right now. It's not just that he's winning fights, It's how he's winning them that's got everyone in the division looking over their shoulders. That TKO victory over Hernandez wasn't a lucky shot or a flash knockdown that got stopped early. It was the result of sustained pressure, technical precision, and the kind of fight IQ that only comes from years of experience at the highest level. When other middleweights watch that footage, they're not seeing weaknesses they can exploit. They're seeing a guy who's figured out how to maximize every aspect of his skill set.
I feel we were all but told that, but we weren't officially told that. We were all but told that. Now let me take you to a week ago. As a matter of fact, Tuesday of this week.
And here's what's really scary for the rest of the division. Strickland is showing all the signs of a fighter who's entering his absolute prime right now. He's got the experience to handle any situation, the conditioning to maintain his pace for 5 hard rounds, and the mental toughness to thrive under the biggest lights. But he's also still young enough and hungry enough to keep improving, keep evolving, keep finding new ways to surprise people who think they've got him figured out. That combination of veteran savvy and continued upside is exactly what makes certain fighters championship material.
Chimaev's manager came out and said, "We," meaning Chimaev himself, "are looking to compete against the winner."
Now let's talk about something that's going to blow your mind about how this impacts the UFC's international business strategy. Strickland's rise is happening at the exact same time the UFC is trying to expand into new global markets, build up regional stars, and create storylines that resonate with different audiences around the world. But Strickland's appeal is uniquely American in a way that doesn't necessarily translate to international audiences the same way that other fighters' stories might. That creates a fascinating tension between giving fans the fights they want to see based on merit versus promoting the fights that make the most business sense globally.
Okay, I don't know what that means for Imanov, but I've never known. I've never got a clear answer on if Chimaev and Imanov aren't next. What's next for Chimaev? But what would be next for Imanov? I've never got a clear answer. And absent of us getting an announcement very soon that those two are going to collide, you do find yourself in a bit of a paradox.
Here's another layer that nobody's talking about: the impact this has on sponsorship deals and marketing partnerships. When the UFC promotes certain fighters for title shots, they're not just selling fights to fans. They're selling marketing opportunities to sponsors, creating content for their broadcast partners, and building storylines that can be leveraged across multiple revenue streams. Strickland's unpredictable personality and unfiltered approach to media makes him a risky proposition for certain types of corporate partnerships, even though his fighting ability clearly deserves the biggest opportunities.
At the table right now, here's the names you've got. Sean Strickland.
But you know what's absolutely fascinating about this whole situation? The way Strickland has managed to create leverage for himself without playing the traditional game that most fighters have to play. Usually, when fighters want to force their way into title contention, they have to do a lot more than just win fights. They have to campaign for themselves on social media, lobby with UFC executives, play politics behind the scenes, and basically sell themselves as the right choice for business reasons. Strickland has skipped all of that and just let his performances do the talking.
How should we know who should go for the championship? Well,
and that approach is actually working better than anyone expected, because it's creating a situation where the UFC almost has to acknowledge his claims to a title shot. When a fighter earns their position purely through what they do in the octagon, it becomes much harder to justify passing them over for business reasons. The MMA media will call you out on it, hardcore fans will revolt, and other fighters will start questioning whether their own hard work will be rewarded fairly. That's the kind of controversy that can damage the UFC's credibility with the people who matter most, the fighters themselves.
generally in that type of situation where everybody's healthy, the champion's waiting, and you've got one of these things, should I go with Ivanov? Should I go with Strickland? One of these things that's so close, generally your answer would be, have them fight.
Here's where this gets really wild, though. Let's say the UFC decides to give Strickland the title shot his recent performances have earned. That creates an entirely new set of problems, because now they have to build a promotional campaign around a fighter who doesn't fit their usual template for marketing championship fights. Strickland isn't going to give you the scripted sound bites, the manufactured drama, or the social media content that makes promoting fights easier. He's going to be himself, which is simultaneously more authentic and more unpredictable than what they're used to working with.
If everything else is equal, let's just put Strickland and Chimaev together and have them fight. Well, shall I remind you, they did.
But here's the thing that might surprise you. That unpredictability could actually be exactly what the UFC needs right now. The MMA audience is more sophisticated than ever before. Fans can spot manufactured drama from a mile away, and they're hungry for authentic personalities who bring real stakes and real emotions to their fights. Strickland represents something genuine in a sport that sometimes feels overproduced, and that authenticity could translate into the kind of organic fan investment that money can't buy.
Strickland won. Shall I remind you that Chimaev's last loss...
Now let's examine how this impacts the other contenders who thought they were next in line for title opportunities. Guys like Khamzat Chimaev have built their entire career trajectory around the assumption that they'd get their shot based on their undefeated records and promotional push. But when someone like Strickland comes along and proves they belong in that conversation through pure performance, it forces everyone else to step up their game or risk getting left behind. That competitive pressure throughout the entire division is actually great for the sport, even if it complicates things for the matchmakers.
So you find yourself in kind of a peculiar situation, right? Like if you're a matchmaker...
And here's something most people don't realize about how title eliminators and championship fights get made. There are so many factors beyond just who deserves it most from a competitive standpoint. The UFC has to consider which fights will sell the most pay-per-views, which matchups create the best storylines, which outcomes set up the most interesting future fights, and which decisions keep their biggest stars happy and motivated. Strickland's surge forces them to balance all of those considerations against the simple fact that he's earned his spot through dominant performances when it mattered most.
Does Chimaev deserve a title shot? Yes, for sure he does. And there's something to be said for parity.
But let's get real about what happens if the UFC tries to sidestep Strickland despite his recent dominance. In today's MMA landscape, with social media amplifying every perceived slight and fans having direct access to fighters' thoughts and frustrations, you can't just ignore legitimate contenders without facing serious backlash. The MMA community has a long memory for fighters who got screwed out of opportunities they earned. And that kind of controversy can follow the UFC for years if they're not careful about how they handle situations like this.
One guy got the final say, who is Strickland? Oh, by the way, they met up in head-to-head competition. That generally would settle the dispute. Head-to-head competition is the #1 criteria. In every seeding process in the world, from high school to the NCAA to the Olympic Games, the #1 seeding criteria would be head-to-head competition followed by common opponent. So what do? Does Chimaev quietly already have a deal? Sean Strickland takes out Anthony Hernandez via TKO in the second round. All right, let's take a look at this. So going into this fight, Sean was a meaningful underdog. I mean, my own partners at DraftKings had him at 1.3-1. And I bring that up because some guys do their best work